being anxious never helped you in any situation. That's for sure. You wake up in the middle of the night, what's your brain doing? Why can't you sleep? Because your brain's running. It was really, really cool experience just to turn your eyes off and turn your ears on. All you need to do, super simple, is just exhale longer than you inhale. Exhale longer than you inhale, and when you exhale, let things go. If you ain't having fun, you're doing it wrong. It's amazing how your world changes when you start paying attention to it. Well, how y'all doing out there? That's what I thought. Just do that for you. You guys are excited. You're excited. I know it. Oh, hit that twice. Episode 27, breathing less. No. It's a great start. Breathing to less stress. I like it. Breathing to less stress. Episode 27, 4/1/25. That's April Fool's. People, anybody excited about April Fool's out there? Well, I mean, you know, this always comes out on that week delay. So if you were excited, you're not anymore. Does anybody even remember April Fool's? I remember this year. Usually I don't. Goal of this episode is to impart the value of starting a breathing practice, to share what I noticed when doing some intentional breathing, which I'm actually going to do live, and then have some fun. Because if you ain't having fun, you're doing it wrong. As always, this podcast is sponsoring Liquid Death, because I need to murder my thirst when I'm doing these episodes. And it works. It murders my thirst. There's no doubt about it. Put that right there so you can read that. See that? I'll tell you, if Liquid Death sponsors you one day, it's going to be amazing. Also, if you don't know, you got this JH. That's for Jekyll Hyde. That's a local Livonia apparel company. Powerlifters, CrossFitters. It's kind of who they cater to. All right, outline of topics today. We're going to do updates per usual. Man, this is the thickest paper I've ever held in my hand. We're going to review breathing a little bit. Covered that a long time ago, back in the teens of the podcast. Might have been single digits where we talked about, might have been in the mind-body stuff that was going on. But we covered it. I want to review it. We're going to do a bit o philosophy. That's a play off of bit o honey. Wish I had one of them right now. But we're just, not philosophy. I don't know what a chime means. Bit o physiology. That's what I meant to say. Physiology. A little different picture in your mind there. Just because it's good to understand that stuff a little bit. Nothing crazy. Then we're going to go fade to black. And what that is, I'm actually going to do some breath work or, kick into some breathing practice or some intentional breathing, as I like to call it. I don't like calling it breath work. And it feels like you're working on something. That's one way to look at it. I like it, it's a breathing practice. Practice is usually a good way to look at it. But having some intentional breathing, because our breathing is always happening. If it wasn't, well, you wouldn't be here, and that'd be a problem. Problem for you. But some intentional breathing, right? So bringing attention and intention to my breathing. I'm actually going to do that for probably 5 minutes or so on the podcast today. And we'll have Nathan fade the camera to black. I think if you are watching this, it would be better if you did this with me. If you really want to get something out of it, maybe take your first step towards some intentional breathing. Obviously, if you're driving or you're not in a place where it makes sense to do this, you're not going to do that. So I'd like Nathan to fade the camera to black. That way, if you are watching, you won't have that thing in your head that's going to try and get you to open your eyes and see what's going on the screen, because that will definitely happen. I used to, back at the park, back in the day, I'd go to this park and I would, it's a little bit odd, but I really wanted to get good at my breathing and bringing my attention to my physiology. And so I would sit on a park bench where people were walking past, and I would just close my eyes and do my breath work. And the first few times I did it, it was incredibly difficult to not open my eyes, right? Because your brain is like telling you all kinds of stuff about, hey, you don't know who that is. Hey, what if they're going to smack you? Hey, whatever, right? It doesn't matter. There's a million stories going on. But it was really interesting once I got good at not opening my eyes, and it wasn't like a thing that I had to think about. I could focus on my physiology. The other thing I would do is I'd focus on my listening. And it was really cool because the area of the park didn't always have people walking by. So it'd be like groups of people, or you hear a bike come riding by and you were just really tuned into the sound of a bike going in front of you. But I remember a handful of times where you kind of like are looking for or anticipating these people to come by, and nobody did for a long time. And I just could hear like every single bird, the wind and everything. It was really, really cool experience. Just to turn your eyes off and turn your ears on. But, so anyways, we'll have Nathan fade the camera to black during that 5 minutes or so. That way you won't be tempted to see what I'm doing on there, because I won't be doing anything. I'll be sitting with my eyes closed, breathing. 2 more topics to cover. Then we're going to talk about how you can build your own practice super quick. And then a final thought. Normally there's a couple, but I didn't have a couple in me today. I got one in me today. Okay, updates. Yeah, so people out there really like the updates. Apparently, the updates are lame. All right, Michigan and Michigan State basketball. Well, Michigan, hey, you know what? They did better than expected. They hung in there with Auburn, and then as soon as they got that 9-point lead, if you watch the game, they got a 9-point lead with, it was 12 or 10 minutes left, and I thought to myself for the first time, man, they might actually win. And then I think Auburn went on a 20-2 run or 22-2 run and put an end to that. And then Michigan State made it to the Sweet 16, and they got beat by Auburn as well. So it was fun to watch. Golf. I did watch the golf tournament. Scheffler got second. Some other dude, young kid. At least he looked young. He might have been 30. But nobody cares about golf. Unless you're a golfer. Weather. Rain, and consistently warmer, and some sun too. The sun keeps popping out there as well. So those are all good things. It's nice to pay more attention to these transitions. Long time ago, not even that long ago, I really paid no attention to the weather as far as like, I didn't care whether it was summer or whether it was winter. There was no reason to. I was just learning about fitness and working and, doing the things that I like to do. And none of those things were outside. I started riding my bike, or I bought a bike, and I started riding a bike during COVID. And now I'm like, I really anticipate like the summer getting back so I can get back on the bike and get outside and like get sun on me. And it's definitely a starker contrast than before, just because I just didn't pay attention. It's amazing how your world changes when you start paying attention to it. Okay, subscriber update, email 62, YouTube went from 109 to 110. Got the big one jump. We're going to be making changes at the YouTube. Now, we've got consistent growth there, but it also consistently takes time and effort, and I am running short on those things with the other stuff that I'm trying to also do. And so we are going to put a hold. We're going to put a hold on the YouTube manager. And so we're still going to post the podcast up there, and we're still going to post the shorts, but it's not going to have all these descriptions and the other things that are going on with it. We're just going to get them up and forget about it. Kind of like Rogan does when he posts something. He sets it and forgets it or whatever he says. We're just going to get it up there and not pay any attention to it. Obviously, I'll check the numbers and continue to give you guys updates, but I don't know what's going to happen. We're just going to kind of let go of the wheel there and see what happens. Spotify went from 25 to 24. And Apple Podcast stayed the same at 22. Reminder, please submit your questions to dennis@dennisfenrich.com. We made some changes to the website too. Moved some pictures around, some things like that. So if you want to check out the website, it ain't much different. But we did make some updates there. Let's get into this. Enough of the applause. Appreciate it. Breathing review. Here we go. Breathing is fundamental to life. Our whole entire physiology is built around it. So if you go like way, way back, organisms have been, I just had a thought that maybe I'm not recording here. That always happens once. Organisms have been utilizing oxygen for a very, very long time, right? So I don't know all the history in there, but at some point it was carbon dioxide is that how it worked? No, the plants breathe carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. Correct. Fungi breathe in oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. I don't remember exactly. Doesn't matter. Organisms have been using oxygen for hundreds and hundreds of millions of years, for sure. And so those organisms that started off as single cells built their entire system around pulling in oxygen and exhaling the byproduct of that, okay? So what that means is that breathing, since you can't go more than 2 minutes or 5 minutes without it, is completely... Your physiology is built around that aspect of being alive, right? All your tissues are shaped around and affected by that process of breathing. And so that gives us a window, a way to tap into it by what we're going to talk about today, or we are talking about some intentional breath work or some intentional breathing. Okay, another thing to think about. When we do start tapping into that, there's this thing called the vagus nerve. And it's not V-E-G-U-S, it's V-A-G-V-E-G-E-S, Vegas. How do you spell this? The city where all that craziness is going on. V-E-G-A-S, yes, V-E-G-A-S. The vagus nerve is V-A-G-U-S. Okay, I don't know why I felt like pointing that out. And so it's this giant nerve that goes from your brain all the way down to all your major organs and innervates its way through your body to those organs and has a huge influence. It's basically getting information up and sending information down in kind of a central nervous system hub of communication for all the important organs and things going on in your body. Okay. Interestingly enough, there's procedures now where they can they can attach an electrode to that thing and you can get your own vagus nerve stimulation or create a parasympathetic response and control depression and anxiety and some other stuff going on with it. But anyways, so there's that thing that's going on. We're going to tap into that. Something else to think about when it comes to your physiology. You have, just imagine right now, you're sitting wherever you're sitting most likely, and all your muscles were to disappear. What would happen? Well, you would just collapse to the floor, right? And so what that means is there's always tension, even when you're lying down, right? If all your muscles disappeared, bam, your position would shift, right? Because there's always this underlying tension, which we call tone, that's in your body, in your nervous system. And when we're breathing, whether it's intentional or not, every time we inhale, that tone goes up a little bit. And every time you exhale, that tone goes down a little bit. And, my speculation is that is one of the mechanisms that is helping to keep things moving through your system, in and out of cells. You're getting this slight change in tension up, tension down, tension up, tension down. And that's kind of like a pumping mechanism, right? And every time you inhale, a little tension comes up. And every time you exhale, a little tension goes down, which is great because that now gives us a very simple tool to start to down-regulate the tone, down-regulate the stress in our physiology. So super simple. All you need to do is exhale a little bit longer than you inhale, and you create this unwinding of tension in your body. When I do the breath work today, when I do the intentional breathing today, that's going to be my goal. And that's what I'm always doing when I do breath work. I say it so often. I do want to say intentional breathing because I think breath work is makes it sound like work, and it's not work. when I do intentional breathing, that's what I'm always focused on. I'm just going to focus on, well, there's a couple things, and I'll talk through it. So as I'm doing the intentional breathing, I'll talk about kind of what I'm experiencing so you guys can kind of go through that with me there. There's some things I want to cover. Exhale, tone down, inhale up, tone up. Exhale longer than inhale, good, got that. Exhale longer than you inhale to downregulate sympathetic response. Yeah. So, okay, I got that. And you are, again, this intentional breathing or breath work is a tap or is a way to get right into your own personal physiology, right? Okay, next topic, bit o physiology. Like I said before, if you like bit of honey, man, we'd probably be friends. Sorry, I'm just saying. All right, so you think about how your physiology is set up, right? And you've got, I guess I could have covered the vagus nerve and some of that stuff in the physiology. But I wanted to talk about body, brainstem, right brain, left brain. And the way our physiology is quote unquote communicating travels through it has a specific way that it gets to your awareness. And obviously it starts in the body, it goes to the brainstem, it comes up through your right brain, and then your awareness is going to become more from the left brain. And this is one of the more recent things that people have been, say, thinking about or starting to see our brain. They're not, if you're really into the deal there, you're not really seeing, or the smart people aren't really seeing one brain, they're seeing two brains. And you're seeing this mechanism of a left brain and a right brain. And we talked about this in the discovery of the unconscious, is that right brain is where our emotional life, our body awareness exists more. And then the left brain is that more cognitive, more specific. Right brain is more holistic. It takes in the whole picture. Left brain is more, if I'm articulating a word or if I'm saying a sentence, it's a very specific thing I'm trying to articulate. It's more conscious. The right brain is more subconscious. And so you have this pathway of body, brainstem, right brain, left brain. So when we are doing this breath work and we're calming our physiology down, we're also kind of turning off or down regulating left brain, frontal lobe type activity, cognitive stuff, which is kind of damping down, which goes along with Freud's stuff about repression. It's kind of, the left brain is a tool to dampen down the emotional side of our physiology, which has its place, right? If you're in a crazy situation, you need to disconnect from your physiology to get through that crazy situation, which you might need to do. That is a good thing to have. It also helps when you're doing work, right? Because you don't want any kind of cognitive work, you don't want your physiology to continue to disrupt the work that you're trying to do, right? But if we can get that left brain to quiet down a little bit and stop talking so much, then that allows the right brain to start to come online. And then when that's happening, you're going to experience that as becoming more aware of your physiology and what your body's doing. And so that's the goal for today. I want to do that and talk you guys through it and kind of explain what I'm experiencing when that's happening. Another thing to think about, and I want to put this on here because I might use this, because I've ran this through a couple of times. Like, can I even do this? Like, is there enough to talk about when I'm going through my, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a few things I could point out here that I think people would find interesting. And I might have to use this example. So I thought it'd be good if you guys knew what it was. Because if I use it and you don't know what it is, it ain't going to be helpful. You know what I mean? Let me get a drink of water here. That liquid death, it's good. It's good water, man. No doubt about it. Okay, so the thing that I want to talk about is homunculus. Okay, that's what it's called. That's actually two different things. I should have wrote down what the other one was. I didn't know it. I just thought a homunculus is what I was about to explain to you, but apparently it's something else as well, and I can't remember what it was. But that's irrelevant. What that is, and I'll read this and I'll give you my interpretation. All right. So a homunculus, That is homunculus. The size of a body part in the homunculus is not proportional to its actual size, but rather to the amount of brain tissue. All right, that's not going to make any sense if I don't tell you what it is. Then I'll read that. So basically, it's a representation of your physiology in your brain, okay? And so we have way more sensory feedback from our hands than we do from our thigh. Like proportionally, there's way more sensors in our hands to give us feedback from what's going on in the world than there is in our thigh, right? And it's like, I got those numbers on here. 15% of fibers innervate the palmar skin of both hands, which is a weird word, palmar. I guess the palm of your hand. 50% of fibers innervate the palmar skin of both hands, and 19% innervate the region surrounding the face and lips, right? So you think it's pretty common sense, right? Like your hands are the one thing that you're really in control that's going to touch and have contact in the world. You can write, you can draw, you can crochet, right? You can put together models. You can do all these very intricate things with your hands. The other thing is your mouth, right? Well, that's pretty important too. Like the food we're eating, the stuff that's going to come into our being is passing through there. So that is a very sensitive place as well. That's why it turned into, we use it for the things we use it for, Anyways. All right. So with that being said, now I'll read the description of a homunculus. The size of a body part in the homunculus is not proportional to its actual size. All right. So I'm doing it again. What is a homunculus? It's a representational drawing of that physiology, right? So it draws the head is actually kind of small, but the face and the lips are very large. And the hands are very large. You can look this up on the internet and see one. And the hands are very large, but then the arms are very skinny. The body's very skinny. The feet get a little bigger because we do have some good sensory stuff going on our feet because it's where you're stepping, right? You don't want to step on rocks or things that are going to cut your foot open. So do you think about the drawing? It's proportionally drawing out the amount of feedback that we get. So that, like I said, the hands are really big. The mouth area is very big. The feet are a little bit bigger, but everything else is very small. All right, now I'll read this. The size of a body part in the homunculus is not proportional to its actual size, but rather to the amount of brain tissue dedicated to processing its functions. For example, the hands, face, and lips are disproportionately large because they have a greater amount of sensory and motor neurons. Okay. That's a homunculus. I'm glad I got through that. So you learned out what a homunculus is, so that's cool. All right, now we're going to do this thing. Okay, Nathan, let's have this video. Let's have a fade to black, Nathan. That way nobody's distracted if they're watching. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do my intentional breathing. I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm going to do it. And then as I'm experiencing the things that I always experience, which you'll probably be surprised, I'll say what it is, and then I'll talk about it a little bit. All right, here we go. Let me get a drink of water. I'm not going to be breathing heavy into the mic, all right? Hopefully. I'll be really nice if I could turn that light off. Okay. First thing that always starts to happen is my low back starts to lose tension, right? It's always subconsciously, like I'm not even aware of it, in this extended kind of tight position. And when I start to do the breath work, it always starts to relax. Now, I learned how to do that by doing 90-90 breathing, right? I started off doing 90-90 breathing. Let me go into some of these details after. Let me see if I just continue with this breathing here. All I'm doing is breathing through my nose and focusing on exhaling longer than I inhale. Doesn't need to be a big, significant difference, but just doing that. Yep. More movement in the low back, predominantly on the left side, which I'll talk about in a minute. This is not the best chair, that's for sure. Yep, left side per usual, low back. I just shifted a little bit because since my back is moving position, that the way I sit in the chair kind of restricts that. So I have to keep moving. Now my left knee just kind of relaxed and moved away from the center. Basically, my knees are moving away from each other, specifically on the left side. And the reason that happens is because if you have an anterior pelvic tilt, which I do, which is predominant on the left side, if you were standing right now and your pelvis dumped forward, like it's a bowl and it dumps forward towards the floor in front of you, pay attention to what your knees do. Your knees cave in when that happens. And so since I have this constant anterior pelvic tilt on my left side, my left knee always is in a slightly collapsed position. You just can't see it, but the tensions ride that way. So as I start to do this intentional breathing and I'm exhaling, since I'm lowering the tone, the tension in my body overall, through the vagus nerve and just the overall tone of the body, those tensions in my low back, left side, start to relax. Now I just felt a little shifting in my thoracic spine, and that is because what is happening in my low back is going to affect what is above it. So now I'm losing some tension in my thoracic spine. Just sat up straighter because my low back straightened out some. Feeling tension in my right lat teres major kind of subside. Now my neck just relaxed. My traps. Feeling less tension in both knees inside. Also, my left foot is now starting to flatten to the floor a little bit. That must be compensatory. Got a pop in my neck, just got loose. Lots of cracking in my thoracic on that one. So basically what is happening, and I've been getting better and better at this for 4. I started doing this about 6 years ago. Is again, the tension throughout my whole body is just dropping. And it seems to stem from my low back. And my theory at that left foot, like now I feel the ball of my foot where the big toe is, and that part of it is now just completely flattened onto the floor. I didn't even feel that a minute ago. I wasn't even aware of that. I just realized my head was shifting away from the mic. Yeah, like I have way more awareness in the whole left side of my body now. So I'm going to talk about why I think that is. So coming back to the left brain, right brain, for the past 10 years, I have had a lot of left brain activity, which is way more cognitive than I used to be. I used to be able to spend a lot more time in my physiology. I had a lot less stress before I opened the gym. Work at Lifetime was way less stressful, way more intuitive. Like I was just working with clients. I didn't have a lot of cognitive stuff to do. Yeah, I had to write some workouts. But since opening the gym, it's a way more cognitive endeavor. And so I say all that because left brain, right brain. So my left brain has been working way more. And if you understand, if you know what you're about to know, that the physiology that I think most people know this, but your right brain controls the left side of your body and your right brain controls the right side of your body. And so my theory, or what I've come to believe, because I have seen no evidence contrary to this, is that since I've been way more cognitive for the past 10 or 12 years, I'm way more connected to the right side of my body, and I've become disconnected to the left side because I haven't been really activating or spending much time in more right brain stuff. Even when I work out, I'm like thinking about the workout, or I'm thinking about my form, or I'm thinking about something, and I'm not just allowing my body to move like when I was a kid or whenever, right? And so what I think happens is I got disassociated from that left side of my body, and it was searching for tension, for control. And so it just kept getting more tense and more tense and more tense. And it's just fascinating that even sitting here talking into a microphone, I cannot believe how good my left foot feels. Like I feel that carpet under my foot. I feel the arch of the foot is off the floor, but the rest of the foot, it's just like in my mind now. And so when I do this breath work, I'm going to wrap this up. That's always the same pattern. It starts on my low back. I realize it's left side. I start to feel my left pelvis shift back to a more neutral position out of the anterior pelvic tilt. It allows my knee to start to drop outwards. I start to get better connected to my left foot. I start to feel the whole leg. My shoulders relax. My low back straightens out a little bit. My thoracic straightens out some. I get less tension in my neck, and it happens every time. All right. I'm going to wrap this up and kick these lights back on. Okay, that was awesome. So, yeah, I think I described everything I wanted to say while I was doing that. Now, you can imagine that I think I started doing this 6 years ago. And when I first started, like I said, I started to get into it, and I decided to wait. But I started off on 90-90 breathing. Basically, you lay on your back, you put your feet on a wall, and your knees are going to be at 90 degrees, and your hips are going to be at 90 degrees. And when I started, I was so stressed and so disconnected from my physiology that my entire left pelvis was off the floor, and I didn't even know it. I just started doing the breath work, which was just 5 minutes. And then I just remember one time, I don't remember how long I've been doing it, but I felt like, I don't know if you've ever experienced where you feel like you're just kind of sitting there and something relaxes and then you feel that joint kind of like creak. It doesn't hurt. It's just like this creaking. It doesn't even feel like much. You just kind of feel it. Well, I felt my left side just do that a little bit. Like my left pelvis just came out of extension just a little bit and it like creaked. And I was like, whoa, what was that? And so I basically, that was my foot in the door, and I kept focusing on that and trying, every time I would exhale, I would try and let that relax more and let that relax more. And eventually the pelvis touched the floor. And I remember the first time I touched the floor, I was like, whoa. And then I come back the next day and it's off the floor and I get it to the floor. That became the goal. Like, how do I get this pelvis, which is lifted? Like I was totally torqued out, and I still am. I'm still working on getting that straightened out. But throughout the day, like I'll feel like my left knee start to hurt, or I'll notice that my low back is getting tight, and and I'll start just doing the breathing practice, right? Because I'm not doing anything anyways, You can also do it while you're sitting there working. Just start doing these exhales and start to get that tension out. And then over time, I started to go into the thoracic, and then my shoulders, and then the whole leg. And then I started to realize it was the whole left side of my body. I didn't really have, and here's where the homunculus comes in. If you were to picture, I realized, because I knew what a homunculus was, and I kind of envisioned, all right, what would my homunculus be like based on what I can perceive right now? Like getting into my physiology and what can I feel? And it was like the right side was big and the whole left side was hardly even there. And this is like a year or two ago. And I was like, whoa, And so now though, when I get into it, it's way more balanced than it used to be. But I mean, it was literally, I was just like disconnected from that side of my body. I don't know how to explain that. It's not like the neurons went away. Maybe they were down-regulated. There has to be some representation of what was happening physically somewhere, but I can't explain it. The whole tone and the tension thing and the breathing, that all is very explainable. So yeah. And I'll say this last thing about it, and then I'll get into, I think, talk about building your practice. Another idea which I think is happening, why is the stress being expressed in low back arching? What I think that is that if you go way back, not even way back, how do I want to say this? What does a gorilla do when it gets stressed? When it, picture you're watching National Geographic or whatever you're watching, and that gorilla's about to get in a fight, what do? Man, they bow their chest up, and they beat their chest, right? So the gorilla's not thinking to do that. The gorilla is responding, its physiology is responding to the environment, and that environment is to build tension up in its low back to raise its chest up, right? What does a gorilla do when it gets its butt kicked, or a dog or whatever, right? You take this hunched position, this defeated position, and that's less stress. You're down regulating your tension to avoid the aggression, right? You're submitting, if you will. And so I think and people respond differently, but with me under stress, man, I bow up. Like I can just feel that tension in my low back. So that's a theory. Do what you want with that, but I think that is why that is happening. Okay. So hopefully, you did that, and that's going to like motivate you. And that was the things I wanted to do, is I was motivating you, inspiring you to take on some intentional breathing, or start your own breathing practice or breath work, call it whatever you want. All right. So how could you do that? I'll make this point in a second. Start with 5 minutes. That's it. I started with 5 minutes. I built it into something I was already doing. I was already going to work out that day. And so, you know what? I'm just going to do this for 5 minutes before I work out. That's it. And so I built that in. And eventually, over time, what ended up happening was, I would start to get a good rhythm. Like I would start to feel that low back relax. And when the alarm went off, after 5 minutes, I'm like, nope, I'm rolling with this, because it was like eye-opening to how much tension I was carrying, and realizing I needed to get this tension out. So eventually 5 turned into 10, and 10 turned into 15, and 15 turned into 20, which turned into, I would fall asleep, right? And I would just lay there. But so you don't have to go to 20 or all that stuff. Start with 3 minutes, start with 5 minutes, but find a place where, already do something every day. Maybe it's before I go to bed. Maybe it's before you work out. Maybe it's after you work out. But you're going to stack a habit. You already have this habit. You're going to stack this new habit onto it. That's a great way to get it incorporated in there. You don't need to go online, and you can if you want. You don't need to go online and come up with some elaborate breathing thing. There's all different kinds. There's box breathing. There's all different kinds of methods out there. The key point is most of us don't need to upregulate, because you can do the exact opposite. You can inhale longer than you exhale, and that's going to upregulate your tone and upregulate your nervous system. All you need to do, super simple, is just exhale longer than you inhale. Just practice exhaling longer than you inhale. And every time you exhale, just kind of let your tissues melt. Let your physiology relax, however you want to think about that. But exhale longer than you inhale. And when you exhale, let things go. Okay? This is an excellent tool. Okay? 3 places that I use this on the regular. One is just general awareness, right? So if it's Saturday and I'm not at work and I'm about to go out and be in a different environment, I like to just do some breathing just to bring some awareness around, so I can just start to pay attention to what's happening around me and make sure I'm not in my head thinking about stuff while the world's around me, right? So when I want to go out and be with friends, I want to go out and enjoy my life, I'm going to exhale a little bit. I'm going to do a little bit of intentional breathing just to, all right, man, here I am. All right, let's go enjoy this, right? Another place, there's 2 more. Anxiousness, right? If I got to go give a talk, or I'm going to be speaking in front of people, I don't focus on that. I don't, unless I'm thinking about positive things about it. Like anytime you're thinking about doing something, you're rehearsing it. So I'm not going to rehearse, oh my God, I'm so nervous about that. Why would I do that? Because then I'm going to be nervous about it. I'm going to either rehearse, bam, this is going to be fun, and I know why it's going to be fun, and I'm seeing it being fun. Or if I don't really have a clear picture on that, I'm just going to do some breath work. I'm not going to think about it at all, and then I'm going to be present in the moment and respond accordingly, right? So it helps to get me, if I'm anxious about something, it helps to get me out of my head about it, which is great, because being anxious never helped you in any situation. That's for sure. And then lastly, super invaluable for sleep. You wake up in the middle of the night, and what's your brain doing? Why can't you sleep? Because your brain's running, okay? Now, you got a couple approaches to that. You need to start writing down everything it's running about so you can think about it later, because you don't need to think about it in bed. That is one tool. But another tool is to do a little intentional breathing, right? Exhale longer than you inhale. You can't take your mind, you can't make yourself stop think. I mean, actually probably can. I can do that a little bit. But it's easier instead of trying to think about not thinking, to bring your attention to something else. And so you're going to bring your attention to your physiology, exhaling, feeling your body start to relax on every exhale, which is going to bring you to where you are, your present place, which is your bed, which is a great place to be, right? You got nothing else to do there but lay there. And even if you're not sleeping, laying in your bed still pretty awesome. I don't know about you, but I love my bed. It's super comfortable. Got the fan kicking, all kind of good stuff going on. All the things in the world I need to think about come 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to think about those things then. This is a great practice to get into. When you start to feel your physiology more, you start to feel the comfort of your bed more. The pillow feels better. You just get aware, you get connected to your body. And before you know it, oh my God, you fell asleep again. So it's a fantastic tool. Now, it's going to take practice, right? Just because you do it once, you're like, oh, I didn't notice anything. I don't remember how many times, but I went like 7. I would be guessing. I would say 7 or 8, maybe 10 times before that low back, that pelvis actually moved for the first time. Now, I was feeling like my stomach and stuff, and so there was some connection going on there. But any real like aha stuff, it took a while to get there. Doesn't matter. Like, you want to build and develop this tool, so you got it when you're anxious. You got it when you're going out and being with your friends. You got it when you're trying to get back to sleep. You want to build and develop this tool. Trust me, it's invaluable. Okay. One other thing I wanted to say before I get into the final thoughts. Many, many people, I know 150 of them, can get excited. They can get excited for a workout. They can get excited to go do something, and they're good at it. But they have no idea how to bring their physiology down. They can bring their physiology up and go crazy in a workout. Deadlift 500 pounds. That's a high stress state that is high physiology, but then have no clue how to bring it down. All right. You got to get good at working in both directions. Okay. So start a breathing practice. You'll never regret it. Okay. Final thoughts. Breath work quiets the left brain and connects us to the right brain. Bring awareness to our physical and emotional needs and in greater connection to our bodies and other people. Adopting a breathing practice will improve nearly every aspect of your life by helping you maintain a lower level of stress, allowing you to stay better connected to yourself, the people you love, and the world around you. That is what you'll get from a breathing practice. All right, guys, that's it. Next episode, understanding protein powders. I'm going to break down protein powders. I mean, it's fun. It's not as cool as what I just talked about, that's for sure, but it's fun. It's interesting. And I know a lot of people are interested in that because there's plenty of holes in people's knowledge game when it comes to protein powder. So I'll get down to anything I can think about on protein powder for you guys. All right. We'll get that done next week. Help us grow. A great way to help us grow is not to just go like the YouTube channel, because most of you have already done that already, if not all of you. But share what you're learning. Share a podcast with somebody who you think could use, it would be good if they could learn how to relax. Now, you can't force information on people. You can only lead people to, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So don't look for people who need help. Look for people who want help. That's a great way to think about it. Share this with somebody who thinks would want some help in this topic, and that'd be fantastic. And you can also like and subscribe at Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Lastly, submit your questions to dennis@dennisfenergy.com, and I will answer them eventually. All right, guys. Have a great week. This was a lot of fun for me. I didn't know how it was going to go, but it went pretty good. And I look forward to talking to you guys again. All right, bye.